Good evening. Welcome to the June 6th edition of the Downers Grove Village Council meeting. We're glad you're with us, whether here in council chambers or watching at home. As is our tradition, we'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Commissioner Jose, Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Here.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Here.
Commissioner Glover,
Here.
Commissioner Tully,
Present.
Commissioner Davenport.
Here.
Welcome all tonight. Commissioner Jose may be joining us later. He's at an event with his daughter this evening, and so we're hoping he has an enjoyable evening. Item 3 on our agenda tonight, we have a couple of proclamations this evening. I've got a little bit of an introduction to start this portion of our meeting. Abraham Lincoln is quoted as saying, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." Throughout history of mankind, our differences and not knowing or taking the time to get to know others have been our consistent downfall. I recognize there's evil in the world, and I recognize that some are simply unwilling, but I also believe those are the outliers. I believe the vast majority of us are more alike than we are different, and that we're all special in the eyes of someone. Our parents, our relatives, our friends, our Creator. Imagine if we took the time to know each other better. Agape is one of the multiple Greek words for love. It refers to a love that begins by loving for the sake of others, intentionally desiring the highest good of another. Because it is a love for and not about, it is sacrificial and undiscriminating. You may have noticed I often hashtag my social media posts with LoveDG. It's my hope that we always start with love and we do the work necessary to know each other better so that we might not only like each other, as Lincoln suggested, but we might also lift each other up in love. I have 2 proclamations for this evening. One concerns Pride Month and the other Garden Week. We have members of both groups here that are supporting those efforts, and we'll start with Pride Month. Whereas members of the LGBTQ+ community continue to face discrimination and mistreatment that no one should ever face. And whereas the Village of Downers Grove supports the rights of every individual to experience equality of treatment and freedom from discrimination. And whereas discrimination based on history, gender, age, disability, race, religion, sexuality, or social economic status is antithetical to the values of our nation, our state, and our village. Whereas the Village of Downers Grove believes in fairness and equality and values our diverse population of both residents and businesses and their guests, recognizing that such diversity is one of our community's greatest strengths. Whereas we recognize that in order to build upon this diversity and maximize the potential for benefit to our community, it is essential that equality of opportunity and the absence of discrimination be at the core of all the village's policies, procedures, and efforts. Whereas, as the long promise of equality remains unfulfilled, all Americans are negatively affected. Whereas the intrinsic human dignity of each person must always be respected in word, action, and in law. Whereas, in Downers Grove, we strive to build and sustain a culture of hope, love, understanding, and respect for our common humanity. Now, therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, proclaim June 2023 as Pride Month in the Village of Downers Grove, and I call upon the businesses and residents of Downers Grove to work together to ensure equal rights for all, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, to encourage our residents to reflect on the promise and premise that America's diversity is our greatest strength, and to urge all residents and businesses to respect and honor our diverse community and to continue to build and celebrate a culture of inclusiveness and belonging for all. Dated the 6th day of June 2023 at Downers Grove, Illinois. And we have a few folks from EQDG who are here to accept this proclamation. If you'd come on down.
Thank you. We have the whole team here. The whole team? The whole team representing the rest of the crowd. Over here in the middle. All right. Thank you all.
Welcome.
A little bit this way so I can get everybody in. Okay. Three pictures.
Another group in town that you should know is our garden club. So we have a proclamation concerning, excuse me, National Garden Week. Whereas gardeners work to preserve our country's traditional spirit of independence and initiative through innovation and hard work. Whereas gardening furnishes a challenging and productive activity for our citizens, for those just learning as well as those having years of experience. Whereas gardening is a universal activity that bridges social, ethnic, cultural, and economic boundaries, and which promotes a healthy lifestyle, helps reduce stress from other areas of our life, teaches the rewards are not often instant and can come from diligent effort, and is an activity that can last a lifetime. Whereas gardening has a long and rich heritage in Downers Grove, as demonstrated by the Garden Club of Downers Grove being founded in 1927, when Mrs. M.L. Puffer was elected president and Mrs. H.M. Lyman was elected wildflower and conservation chairwoman. Whereas the objectives of the club remain the same today as they were 95 years ago, namely the advancement, interest in gardening, support of conservation efforts, furthering city beautification, and funding scholarships. Whereas over these years, the Garden Club has planted flowers, bulbs, trees, and bushes at nearly every park, school in the village, as well as the library, the Main Street Cemetery, the Maple Grove Forest Preserve, and the American Legion. Whereas the Garden Club of Downers Grove is a charter member of the Garden Clubs of Illinois and the National Garden Clubs. Whereas scholarship awards are given each year to horticulture students at the University of Illinois. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim the week of June 4th through 10th, 2023 as National Garden Week in the Village of Downers Grove, and recognize and thank the Downers Grove Garden Club for their accomplishments and contributions to our community, and encourage all residents to set aside time to recognize the work that gardeners, hobbyists, and professionals alike do to keep Downers Grove beautiful, and seek opportunities to support the Garden Club and to garden wherever they have a chance. Dated this 6th day of June, 2023, Downers Grove, Illinois. We have some members of the Garden Club here tonight with us as well.
Three pictures. One, two, three.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 4 on our agenda, minutes of previous council meeting. Is there a motion concerning such minutes?
Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the May 16th, 2023 Village Council meeting as presented.
Second.
Any council comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Item 5 on our agenda is our public comments portion of the meeting. This is the portion of the meeting where we take comment on items not on tonight's agenda. If you have a comment, please come on down to the podium and share it with us.
My name is Laura Temple. Mayor and Council, first of all, just a generic thank you for being here. These meetings are a real commitment, and I walked here through downtown Downers, and I can tell you everyone else in Downers Grove is eating out tonight or at Fischel Park at the concert. It's packed down there, which is wonderful, but thank you for being here because it's a real, service to our community, so thank you for that. And I would also just like to say that I'm really proud that Downers Grove is a village that supports Pride Month. And I would continue to hope that all residents of Downers Grove will take every opportunity to turn words of support into actions that demonstrate real love and real care for members of the LGBTQ+ community, and that we will push back and speak out against any attempts to try and marginalize that community. Thank you.
Thank you. The other subjects not on tonight's agenda. Okay, we will continue. Is there a motion for a consent agenda?
Mayor, I move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We are moving right along. We do not have an active agenda tonight, so we'll move on to our first reading portion of our meeting. This is the portion of our meeting where we begin to discuss for the first time, or sometimes continue conversations on subjects on which we do not plan to take formal action this evening. With that, we'll turn it over to, looks like Stan, who's walking up to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and Manager Fieldman. Thank you for having me tonight. The first item on the agenda is a special use extension for a proposed automobile dealership at 2424 Ogden Avenue, here at the northeast corner of Cross and Ogden Avenue. Here's the property again. It's the former Max Madsen site. As you may recall, in July of last year, July 7th, that the council approved an approval of this proposal to build a new building. It's principally made of glass. It'll be a very attractive building. The petitioner is working through permitting with the village and IDOT and DUDOT, and is requesting a 6-month extension for their special use that it was due to expire in July, 1 year from the approval date last year. So the special use extension is via 2812-050I2. Mayor and Council, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you at this time.
Thank you, Stan. Are there any comments or questions from the audience on this item? Comments or questions from the council? Sometimes special uses, sometimes any uses, construction projects and the like don't go as quickly as everyone might hope. We're glad to hear this is still likely to proceed, and I'm certainly expecting we'll all approve this next week.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, the next item on tonight's first reading agenda is consideration of an ordinance amending portions of Chapter 14 of our municipal code. This concerns recommendations of the Transportation and Parking Commission, as well as changes that were made under the village manager's authority to our public street system. Specifically, we're asking the council to approve an ordinance which would place an all-way stop at Dunham and Jefferson, an all-way stop at Carpenter and Grove, and restrict turning movements at Parkview Drive at Fairmount due to school operations. And at that same location near the school, revise limits of existing no parking areas. Additional information on these items is available in your packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Dave. Any comments or questions from the audience on this agenda item?
Yay for stop signs.
Any comments or questions from the council? I just add a little bit of commentary for those watching at home, and for the record, parking and traffic is a little bit like whack-a-mole in Downers Grove, and it is not uncommon for us to have slight adjustments as we go through the course of a year. Some brought up by staff, some brought up by residents, and this is one of those instances. Please go online and take a look. You can read all more about it there. Go on, Dave.
Next item is an amendment, consideration of an amendment to section 3.33 of our liquor control ordinance. This amendment would remove the prohibition of video gaming at nationally recognized fraternal and veteran organizations. This amendment is consistent with a recent amendment to state law that allows these organizations to obtain a video gaming license from the state without obtaining one from the local municipality. Happy to answer any questions, Mayor.
Thank you, Enzo. Any comments or questions from the audience? Comments or questions from the council? None. Okay, this is, again, a little bit of a house cleaning component to our ordinance. There are various things that cause us to change our ordinance to stay compliant with sometimes state law, other times building codes. There's a variety of things along those lines that come up through the course of the year. And again, all the information supporting this is online. Please take a look if you have more interest.
And with that concludes our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Enza, back to you.
Yep, 3 items to present tonight, Mayor. The first is an ordinance authorizing an extension of a special use to permit a personal vehicle sales business at 2424 Ogden Avenue. An ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Downers Grove Municipal Code, and an ordinance amending Section 3.331 of the Downers Grove Municipal Code concerning video gaming at fraternal and veteran organizations. All 3 will be on next week's active agenda. Thank you, Mayor. That's all.
Thank you. All right, we are on to item 10, the mayor's report. I do have a few things this evening. First of all, on May 19th, Friday, May 19th, I had the pleasure of spending a few hours, bulk of a day, with our fire department. And I tend to do that periodically, whether it be our fire department, our police department, or our public works team. And so every time I do that, I learn something. and I think it's a really valuable exercise, but most importantly, I appreciate them putting up with me. So, in particular, Battalion Chief Bob Kokolowski, Lieutenant Joe Markowski, firefighters Chris Collard, Jason Driscoll, Scott Kerchevsky, and Dylan Arnold, thank you for your patience and for feeding me and for making sure I didn't get in the way. Every time I ride with our guys, it doesn't matter what department it is, but they all do fantastic work, and I am consistently impressed not only with the work they do, but the way they do it. The empathy that they show, the way they engage our residents, it's fantastic, and I want to thank them. And then I wanted to mention to residents something I've noticed. So this is a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I kind of mean it too. I think if you think about yourself, you'll notice when you're at a stoplight and you're next to a fire truck, you're likely to wave and smile. And when you're next to a snowplow, you're likely to give them a thumbs up. And when you're next to a police car, for some reason, you're likely to look at your toes. And that's not fair. So as we all go forward, really there are 300 plus folks working every day on behalf of every resident of Downers Grove. And whenever you see them, regardless of what job they're doing, give them a smile, give them a thumbs up, because they are working hard and they really do care. I'm not quite done. I actually have a couple more things. EQDG, who was here briefly earlier, one of our many local organizations, is joined together with the Downers Grove Public Library, working with the Legacy Project Chicago, and they are inviting all to view a very special and powerful installation of the nationally acclaimed Legacy Wall at the Downers Grove Public Library during the month of June. This digitally interactive exhibit highlighting 400 years of LGBTQ+ history is designed to celebrate and teach the powerful stories of LGBTQ+ achievements throughout history on behalf of all society. The Legacy Project is a Chicago-based cultural and educational nonprofit dedicated to researching and promoting the contributions LGBTQ+ people have made to the world history and culture. The Legacy Wall was first introduced in 2015. It is a 24-foot-long digitally interactive traveling installation featuring 125 elements celebrating the contributions of LGBTQ+ people across 20 different fields, nearly 400 square feet of biographical content in a 360-degree double-sided island. It is an impressive display. The goal of the Legacy Wall is to use the lessons of history to spark conversations about the information's ability to promote feelings of safety and belonging, to give LGBTQ+ youth hope in improving their outlook, and to raise cultural awareness. After its public launch in October of 2015 in the Illinois State Capitol, the Legacy Wall began a statewide tour of 14 sites over 16 months. In 2017, it began a national tour. To date, nearly 36 sites have been visited, providing nearly 500,000 people with an opportunity to engage with this unique, inspiring, and educational installation. If you have a chance over the next several weeks, please stop into the library and get to know others better through this educational exhibit, and recognize that this is a pretty special thing for Downers Grove. It just hasn't been in that many places worldwide. Lastly, I want to extend a special welcome to the students and chaperones from Bietigheim-Bissingen Music School, as well as the city's chief administrator, Suzanne Greshner, and their mayor, Jürgen Kessing. Congratulations to the students, parents, faculty, and administration of District 99 for restarting this 3-decade-old relationship after the COVID pandemic put a real cap on it. Building relationships across fences, across aisles, across oceans is important. And the District 99 folks represent our community well and make us all proud. Yesterday, the band performed a concert at Fishel Park, which was fantastic. A couple of us were there. They're performing again, another free concert, Thursday, June 8th at 7 p.m. at Downers Grove South High School. I would encourage you all to mark your calendar and try to attend. If at all possible, it will be a wonderful show. And so with that, we will move on to council member reports. This is an opportunity in our meeting for council members to report out on other goings-on and activities and groups that they're connected with throughout the community. So I'll start with Martin Tully.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Few things. First of all, I did have the opportunity, along with Commissioner Davenport, to attend the June 1st opening reception for the Legacy Wall at the Downers Grove Public Library. It was really a fantastic opportunity. Got a chance to really view aspects of it, and the thing that struck me about it, among many things, is it almost seems as though the space that it occupies on the second floor of the library was made for this exhibit. It's really perfectly lighted. It's celebrated in the way that it should be. And it was really special because we also got to meet those who were responsible for the origin of the Legacy Project Chicago, as well as that tour that you mentioned, which was also a special treat to actually talk about the people who were involved in bringing it to life and then bringing it to Downers Grove. The interactiveness is also really cool with the QRC codes on the wall where you can really dig into more detail. I'm just really glad that it's here. It's a great coup for Downers Grove. Second, be remiss if I didn't remind everybody that this Saturday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. at the Downtown Farmers Market, so who can miss that? We'll be having our monthly Coffee with the Council, where residents who would like to come down, maybe not miss the concert or miss an outdoor dinner on a Tuesday night, can come down and speak to us on a Saturday morning on topics of anything that is on their mind. That's always a very pleasant experience, and hope to see folks there. And then, just because you came to me first, I'm going to beat Commissioner Davenport to it and remind everyone that there are, in fact, only 16 days left until Rotary Grove Fest. Thank you, Mayor.
I guess we're going to have to alternate that, aren't we?
I think you have been.
Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your proclamation recognizing Pride Month. It's an important part of our responsibility as a council to exemplify the shared values of our community. And by formalizing that support in a proclamation, we tell our LGBTQ plus neighbors that we as a village see you. As we step into Pride Month, let's honor and celebrate the richness and diversity within our village and its LGBTQ community. This month is more than a celebration. It's a reminder, in the words of activist Audre Lorde, that it's not our differences that divide us, it's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. We as a village proudly stand with our LGBTQ plus neighbors, acknowledging their resilience, strength, and the vibrant colors they bring to the tapestry of our community. We witness a wonderful manifestation of unity with the vivid rainbow colors adorning our local business windows. These windows are a reflection of our collective spirit. More than just beautiful and celebratory, each painted pane not only mirrors our diversity, but also stands as a reminder to the struggles that this community has endured. These vibrant windows stand as symbols of acceptance and love that we strive for, while acknowledging the strength and resilience of our LGBTQ plus friends and neighbors. Pride Month is a recognition of the progress we made, yet it is also a reminder of the strides we need to take towards a future where everyone feels seen, accepted, and loved. Happy Pride Month. And one further note, as the elementary school year comes to a close this week and summer break starts, I just ask residents to be more resilient and patient drivers, as we will have more young pedestrians and bikers traversing our streets and sidewalks. Thank you, Mayor.
And yay, stop sign.
And yay, stop signs.
Mike.
Yes, yay, stop signs. I guess I don't have much to add to what's already been said. It's Pride Month, and I'm proud to be a resident of a community that recognizes the importance of that. And then maybe a further plug for Grove Fest. Some of the money that we earned through Grove Fest at Rotary actually went to support bringing the Pride Wall here to Downers Grove. So show up on the 22nd, 16 days from now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny.
No report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Danny. Leslie.
Yes, I'm also going to wish everyone a happy Pride Month. And it's important to remember that before it became a celebration, it started out as a protest. June 28, 1969 marks the start of the Stonewall riots, when the LGBTQ community responded to a police raid that began at the Stonewall Inn, a bar in the Greenwich Village neighborhood of Manhattan that served as a safe haven for the city's LGBTQ community. And at the time, anyone who identified as LGBTQ had minimal rights nationwide, and bars and restaurants even faced getting shut down for having gay employees or serving gay patrons. While police had raided LGBTQ-friendly establishments before, on that particular night, members of the community decided to fight back, sparking an uprising that would launch a new era of resistance that's now become the celebration we have today. And now we're able to recognize the accomplishments of the LGBTQ plus community and work towards a more just and inclusive society. Unfortunately, our nation has recently been hit with a wave of legislation aimed to curtail the rights of LGBTQ+, particularly transgender Americans. And I'm proud to live in a state and a village, so thank you for the proclamation, who recognizes the valuable contributions of those who dedicated their lives to furthering equal rights and respect for all. So I'm incredibly proud that our village is host to the Legacy Wall. I was there for about 20 minutes before another engagement, and I barely had time to read about half of the biographies. So really thank you to EQDG for making that happen. And for those who are not aware, EQDG has also partnered with the Transformative Justice Law Project on an initiative to help transgender individuals in Downers Grove and neighboring communities cover the costs of changing their names. This funding is to support individuals who make over the income requirements for a fee waiver through the courts, but not enough to cover the costs on their own. So EQDG will help to fund court fees on a first-come, first-served basis, and you can visit their website at eqdg.org/initiatives for more information. I also want to thank all of the local artists and businesses for the window paintings downtown, and I hope that everybody will patronize these wonderful businesses for fostering a sense of belonging in our community. And finally, don't forget that Pride in the Parking Lot will be taking place this Sunday, June 11th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the First United Methodist Church parking lot, as well as Fischel Park. There will be plenty of fun for all, including storytelling by Outspoken at the Fischel Park stage at 11:30 a.m., a drag gnome scavenger hunt, tie-dye rock painting and games, a rainbow science project, nail and face painting, a clothing exchange, chalking in the parking lot, a pet pride costume contest, community organization booths, and a food truck this year. So, as I say often, my goal is to build an inclusive community such that one day these monthly recognitions for marginalized communities become unnecessary, as we are all guaranteed equal rights and a sense of belonging regardless of who we are. And to my LGBTQ+ community members, please know that we love you for who you are, and nothing more and nothing less. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is our manager's report. Manager's report this evening is going to be long-range planning. We're going to take a little bit of a break, just a few minutes, probably 3 to 5 minutes. We will move over to our committee room where some of these conversations, frankly, are just a little easier for the council to engage in. So you're welcome to join us over that, and we'll take a short break right now. Here in the committee room to continue to discuss our long-range planning process. This is now meeting 2, and we'll continue to talk about key trends and issues tonight. As you can see on the board, that is, of course, the starting point for us to try and understand some of the things that we're facing, the trends that are in front of us, and the issues that we already know about prior to getting into our strategic portion. So I'm going to hand it over to Dave, and you can continue our conversation.
Great start to the introduction, Mayor Barnett. Thank you. As a reminder, long-range planning is unique in Downers Grove because it is a combination of financial planning and strategic planning. So we do the strategic outcomes with our financial limitations and challenges in mind as we go through. And this plan is used on a daily basis to drive not only the annual budgets that are prepared by staff and considered by the council, but village council policy directions and also day-to-day operations. So a very important document. The mayor did a nice job of walking us through the components, and in our flight analogy that we use for our roles and responsibilities, tonight we'll be at the 30 and 40,000 foot level talking about goals and objectives and key trends and issues that are facing us. Mayor Barnett also indicated that we're in meeting number 2 of a series of at least 6 meetings that will take place between now and middle August. One of the key components of our long-range plan is our strategic goals. We talked about these in some detail at our first meeting on May 16th, and the council conversation prompted perhaps a few changes to those goals. And based on the council discussion and direction from last time, staff is proposing a change to an existing goal. The existing goal is a safe community. That would change to a safe and welcoming community. And the supporting text that really shows the legislative intent and how we would apply this goal is included in the agenda materials that are online and at the council's place. In addition to that, we're proposing a new standalone goal that would be added, a beautiful community. And again, the supporting documentation and intent is here in the document in front of you. And we just wanted to point out that the bullet points that are included there really speak to the balance of how we would apply this goal in our day-to-day operations and policy making. So with that, Mayor, I'll hand it over to you.
So everybody's had a chance to review this at least a little bit, and part of what we need to do to continue this process is determine whether or not we want to make any changes to these top-line goals. So anybody want to start, begin with some thoughts? Martin?
I'll be difficult because, and also tardy, because I finally had a chance to look at this more closely and couldn't help but edit. So no one's seen this yet, although I did send it to Dave and Mike and Enza, but Open Meetings Act couldn't share it with everybody beforehand. Basically, what I did, and I can read this, because basically what I did was to take a safe and welcoming community and a beautiful community and combine them, primarily for conciseness, because there was a lot of overlap in the language. In fact, some things were literally said twice in two different places, and it's just the draftsman in me that anytime you say something more than once, you create confusion. It's best to say it once and say it well. So I can send this around to everybody. I don't expect anybody to jump on it now, having not seen it, but I'll just read it real quickly, and if I could actually project it, I would put it up on the screen, but I'm not able to do that, so what I will do is read it. I'm not going to take the time to write it out. But basically, it goes along these lines. A safe, welcoming, and attractive community. The village should strive to provide and maintain a self and welcoming community where all stakeholders, both longtime residents and newcomers, feel a sense of pride and belonging in the community. Community members should be safe while participating in daily activities such as spending time in their homes. There was a grammatical issue in there, sorry, had to fix it. Spending time in their homes and neighborhoods, driving a vehicle, riding a bike, and going for a walk. Actually, I think I had added shopping and dining in there as well in the version that I sent to staff. The village should enjoy a low crime rate along with a low occurrence of fires and injuries. Buildings, both private and public, should be constructed and maintained in a manner that provides a safe and secure environment for all occupants. The village should also strive to maintain and enhance an attractive appearance for the community. The built environment should be visually pleasing, of a timeless design, and instill a sense of pride among residents and stakeholders. Public spaces should be inviting, comfortable, and engaging places for both residents and visitors. We left that out. Further, any project or improvement constructed or installed by the village should reflect the following design objectives, and the bullet points are unchanged. So basically, and obviously, again, I apologize for not having time to really think about this until about 5:30 today. Everything that was there before in staff's draft is still there, with the exception of adding in visitors in one place, which I personally think is important, and also adding in shopping and dining along with driving and riding a bike and going for a walk and being peaceful in your own home. But everything else, it's there. It's just been combined instead of two paragraphs and two different issues. It's all together because I, in my opinion, thought that a safe, welcoming, and attractive community kind of all went together. And it avoided repetition. So again, my apologies to everybody for just bringing this up now, but I really didn't get a chance to do this until this evening. If I can ask Mayor, if staff could actually share the email with the rest of the council, then you can see it. So that's my comment.
Okay. The other comments, Leslie?
Yeah, after seeing this on paper, I've got to say that I can see the value in separating these out. Because to me, safe and welcoming are in the way that we are presenting it is different than just beauty. Because the welcoming isn't just, oh, okay, it looks pretty, it's on the surface. That really feels like kind of a lot of, if you're considering welcoming just being pretty on the surface, that feels like that performative measure of saying, oh yeah, we welcome you, but then deep down we really don't. And so to me, safe and welcoming, it goes much deeper than just an aesthetic beauty. And so my ideal goal would have these a little bit separate, because to me, we take a little bit deeper of a dive into the safe and welcoming community. I am happy with kind of the shift in that. I think the beautiful community is, I don't want to say not as important, right, as, safe and welcoming, but it's just it's a different feeling to me of, now we're talking about the built community. The safe and welcoming community not only incorporates, our infrastructure, but it also incorporates the way in which we conduct ourselves. And the beautiful community to me is more about the infrastructure and kind of that material thing that we can see. So I do see great value in separating these two out. And I think generally saying a comfortable and welcoming place for people, we could say residents and visitors. I would be fine with kind of tweaking some of that small language. But I think that we do need to separate out the infrastructure from kind of the things that go beyond that, the culture of the community, should I say. So obviously aesthetics can be a part of that, but I think it's important to separate those two out. So I'm in support of keeping them separate. Thank you, Mayor.
Others?
I'll play my rookie card.
Lay it out there.
So what are the consequences or benefits to having these together or separate?
That's part of what we're talking about. One of the things that happens sort of in the course of activities, I'm going to probably overstate this, and I don't want to diminish anybody's role, ours or staff's, but there are big projects. The policing initiative with engaging the community was one. There are big projects like infrastructure construction, like for instance Village Hall is another example, that we get pretty intimately involved in. Then there are 1,000 times as many things that happen day in and day out with decisions that are made by staff running the village every day that we don't hear about. And so these goals guide those conversations and decision-making processes. So our decision now is whether we think that kind of guidance is best. First of all, do we want to include it? And then if we want to include it, do we want to include it in this combined fashion or in a separated fashion? The potential benefits, I think, there are always benefits to brevity in almost any instance. But I think from my experience and my view of how we've operated, I think it'd be awfully easy for us to be safe and welcoming and not very aesthetically pleasing, to be safe and welcoming and not fiscally responsible, to be fiscally responsible and not safe and welcoming. And I think you could easily, if you bunched them all up into one, it would be pretty easy to miss some of the points as you went forward. I don't know if that helps or hurts.
It helps some. I'm wondering from a staff perspective, is there a difference in how the staff looks at it?
Not much of a difference. We, of course, refer to this document all the time, as we just talked about, but there's a lot of discussion that happens at our executive leadership meetings every week, and we talk about the concepts that are important to the council. So as long as we know what those concepts are, and whether they're in one or two separate goals, is not of a great concern to the staff. We just want to make sure that we understand your policy direction, your goals, so that we can best apply it. In this case, we just, whatever works for the council will work for staff.
And I had one other comment, in that under beautiful community, we talk about the built environment should be pleasing and of a timeless design and instill a sense of pride. I would remove the word timeless and replace it with the word enduring. And it's the architect in me. I'm afraid when we say timeless, I think it can lead some people into thinking that we're just looking at historically, common elements, archetypes, and in fact, what we're not afraid of doing something more modern. What we're trying to avoid is something trendy, right? Something that we do that we regret doing years down the road because we think shag carpet looks great right now. But right, so
You mean flag lots?
yeah, flag lots. Oh, that was a great move. So enduring, I think would be a better word there. And then I guess I could move either way, whether it's more concise or as long as it's all in there. It sounds to me like I get it either way. So as long as it's all in there, I'm on board.
Dee, Chris?
You want to go?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess while I do appreciate Commissioner Tully's reworking it all, and I could see it all going into any of these strategic goals. Actually, I could see a beautiful community fitting in, and I think that actually speaks to how important it is. And I don't think that it should lose any of that value by being bunched in with a bunch of other things. So I do think it should be listed as a separate goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think most of what Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit said is in line with my thinking. I think the safe and welcoming has, for me, a different purpose than beauty. And I do think having them separate does actually provide focus. I love the idea of adding visitors, so I welcome that. I certainly would welcome the combined version if there's other things, having only heard it read aloud, that we may want to consider. But I think to me, it's important that they're separate, and we can use those as touchstones for specific things rather than peeling them out when we want to apply them. The only thing I had was on the beautiful community, just the cost-effective bullet. I feel like that's absolutely covered in our fiscal stewardship, our financial viability and fiscal stewardship. I do worry a little bit of that, either, I don't want to say being a crutch, but maybe it may add some limitation to what we are thinking if that has to be a part of it. I think we talked a bit about value last time. So other than that, they all seemed reasonable, and I thought, so for that one, going back to the safe and welcoming, the words welcoming and belonging really struck like a positive chord with me. I felt like that encapsulates what I am thinking when I think of welcoming, and people have a feeling of belonging. Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit said it well. The beauty is the structure and the buildings and the parks and whatever, or the parkways. I mean, the safe and welcoming, I think, is more focused on how we reach out to residents and how we think of ourselves as a community of people. So those are my comments. I would be in favor of keeping them separate, removing the cost-effective bullet out of the beautiful community, and making sure that welcoming, belonging sits in those, supports that goal in a way I think is the intent of it.
I'd like to see Martin's email, first of all, but my
Yeah.
reaction right now is that I'd like to see these separate. I wanted that one added to start with. The visitors component, we've been trying very hard to include that in a lot of things we say and do, various proclamations and other public, gatherings and things where we've had an opportunity to speak. I think it's important to talk about visitors, and to highlight that we want them to be part of this community as well. And Dury, great choice of
Yeah,
word.
that's
I don't
great.
have shag carpet in here. And then I guess I feel the same way as I was saying before. You could, if you could you could certainly combine many of these and leave others out in moments. But with that same line of thinking, I think that cost-effective really is covered by sort of financial sustainability. That's at the top of our list and always one of our considerations. I don't know that it needs to be in any one of these. If you thought you needed it here, you could put it in top quality infrastructure too, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't really need to be there, I don't think. So I would support removing that from there as well. And we don't have Greg's input tonight, but I'm sure we'll get it.
So to that end, what we'll do is we'll circulate Commissioner Tully's language to everybody. We'll bring it back, I think, later in the process as we get down towards the middle and end of August, and then you'll see how all this fits in together with the key trends and issues, et cetera. So that'll be our plan as of now, and we'll see how it comes together, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor, one other thing.
Yes, sir.
Since it seems like everybody wants to go with separate ones, I just want to pick up on something that Commissioner Gilmartin said, which is the bullet points. I was going to leave them alone until you raised that point. Now that you've raised that point, I would go further than that, because I think there's some other bullet points here that are actually already stated. So, for example, sustainable is right there at the top. Safe is literally the one that was added last year. Secure I could leave, because that suggests something to me other than, there's probably other words we could use than safe. I think what you're getting at is structural integrity. Functional kind of goes to, where is it? exceptional or top quality. I mean, top quality and exceptional, it's got to work. Otherwise, it's not top quality, nor is it exceptional. Accessible, aesthetically pleasing, absolutely keep those. But I would just at least ask that question of my colleagues, that if we're going to start removing bullet points, then there's other things that if they're separate, I would question why we're saying them again. Or perhaps they need to be stated differently, so that they're clearly not repeating something that's already said, because then you question, well, why are you saying it twice?
And if we're limiting the bulleted list, maybe it becomes a couple sentences. and
Correct.
then we lose
Yes,
the-
that's what I would suggest. If it's
Yeah.
separate, then maybe it's just a narrative
Yeah.
rather than a bullet point.
Yep.
We only
I
have
agree with that.
bullets in the strong, diverse local economy. And I wonder if we ought to, just for the purpose of the goals section, they ought to all be written just verbally.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Good point.
No pun intended.
All right.
That's good direction for now, like I
some
said. We'll
information?
circulate everything, we'll digest what we heard, and we'll bring it back to make sure. It's so important that the goals reflect the policy direction of this council, so we'll have ample time to make sure that it happens as we get deeper into our process.
We have a couple of visitors. Anything you guys want to comment on as you're listening to this conversation?
If I may, I agree wholeheartedly that the two items should definitely be separated. Personally, I find that safe and welcoming is way on top of beautiful. I mean, there's lots of beautiful communities out here that do not feel welcoming. So, from that standpoint, I think that they do need to be separated, and I do feel much more comfortable in talking about the safe and welcoming aspect of our communities.
Do you feel like you need anything further from us this evening?
Not right now, but like I said, it'll come back for opportunity to fine tune and make sure we reflect policy direction.
Great. I don't want to chop anybody off. Anybody else have something they want to add tonight?
No?
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Well, you know.
No.
We'd like to flip the board over and talk about
I forgot
there's
about
more.
the flip. I forgot all about the flip.
Must be an 8:15 movie at the Tivoli.
This is why I need to sit back down.
Don't you remember in Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom, it was the other side of the amulet, Mayor?
I forgot about the flip. I need to get out of the way. Yeah, see?
I'm hoping I'm far enough back.
Where's our risk manager?
Yeah.
Look out.
That's why I had Commissioner Martin step back.
Oh, you were just looking out for his
I was.
well-being.
I was.
I see.
Love that.
Yeah,
I love it.
I apologize to everybody for getting about the second half, which is trends and issues, which is pretty doggone important.
Yeah.
Dave, keep us moving.
Over
please.
the next two long-range planning meetings starting tonight, we will present about 8 or 9 key trends and issues that have been identified by either staff or the village council, or a combination of both in conversations. Tonight, we're going to present 4 key trends and issues. 3 of them are on the board, 1 I'll do verbally. And along with the key trends and issues, we'll identify potential strategies and solutions to help address those. So we'll start with the general fund sustainability. The general fund is our main operating fund in our budget, and it supports almost all of our day-to-day operations, basically most services excluding those things that are capital projects in nature. The story here is that for the last couple of years, our revenues in our general fund have greatly exceeded our expenses, and you can see that the revenues are in the red, the expenses are in the black on the line chart there, so it shows from 2020 up to a projection in 2025. So the last 3 years, we've been in a really good position, and as the council knows, we've taken advantage of that, and we've taken money in the general fund and moved it to other areas of demonstrated and quantified financial needs, like equipment replacement fund, our civic center project, et cetera. When you look at this graph moving forward in 2023 to 2025, we are projecting that situation is likely to continue. In the red, we are projecting that revenues will continue to increase, but we think at a slower pace than we've enjoyed in the last couple of years. So in the projection, we've done 2% per year increase up to 5%. That's that range that's shown there. On the expense side, expenses have been growing. We all understand and feel the effects of inflation. It hits our household, it hits our village as well. We have projected that expenses will likely increase at a rate faster than the revenues, somewhere around the 4 to 7% a year mark. So with those projections in mind, strategies and solutions that we put forward for the council to consider, obviously we need to continue to manage our expenses. That's really in our DNA. It's part of how we roll here in Downers Grove. It's also important that we maintain our fund balance as recommended by the financial advisors, which is about 38% of the expenses in any one given year. That's just to make sure that we're resilient and sustainable, as we talked about in our goals. But the next two bullet points are really the new opportunity that we have here, and that is that we could, as a strategy, as money is available, transfer funds from the general fund to two other areas that I'll present tonight that are quantified stated needs. One is for continuing increases in public safety pensions. The other is debt service on our Civic Center project. So that's a nice lead into the next two items here. The next issue that we're identifying is an issue that has been present for many years and dealt with very well by our council and community over the years, but it continues to be a financial challenge, and that is required contributions to public safety pensions, police pension, and fire pension. We heard earlier tonight the mayor talking about the value of our teammates, and particularly in these two lines of work, just phenomenal. And the commentary here is a purely financial one in complying with state laws. So our required contributions to the pension funds are projected to double by 2040. They currently stand at $10 million per year, and the actuary that works for those funds has done a model that shows us that those will be up to $20 million a year by 2040. So that's I hand through that graph, you can tell. That's a pretty straightforward issue to understand there.
Large little wavy though.
It does, you know, and it's actually reflected in the actuary model, believe it or not.
We got to get you a green marker, too.
Mike Baker did not write that graph. So as far as strategies and solutions that are available to us, the concept is pretty simple. We could earmark dollars that start in the general fund to make future contributions to the Public Safety Pensions Fund. This is something that this previous council started with this budget year for smoothing of the property taxes and lessening the impact on changes to our property taxpayers. We could take it a step further and create a little more formality to that practice by considering the creation of a public safety pension contribution stabilization fund or stabilization policy. This just formalizes what the council did for this year. It's basically a way of saying, hey, if we have some money available in the general fund and we know we're going to have increasing costs going forward in the public safety pension fund, let's just earmark that money, and instead of just raising property taxes in a linear fashion like this, then when we have the opportunity to put it away and use it in the future, that's what we should do. And the third related key trend and issue is really some good news in the Civic Center debt service plan. As you know, we are building a new Civic Center right here on our own campus. It's a new village hall and a new police station in one building combined with the administrative offices of School District 58. It's a project that costs us just over $60 million. But the bonds that we incurred and issued for this project were only $36.3 million. We had saved up about $24 million over the years in planning as our down payment on that project. So what I want to talk a little bit about here is the debt service payments on those $36.3 million in bonds. It is a Downers Grove way to have a very detailed financial plan before we undertake something like that. And in 2022, just before those bonds were issued, we presented that financial plan to the council. At that time, we expected, given the interest rate environment, that the 25 years worth of total payments would total out to be $59.3 million. And in this bar graph here, you'll see three major categories of revenue sources pledged to make those payments. Over $45 million are from multiple existing revenue sources and a couple of new ones that will become available. I didn't list them on the board. They are listed in the packet that's online in front of the council. So the vast majority are those multiple sources. The next major source is over $9 million attributable to revenue coming from Lot 2, which is a property that we intend to sell for private sector development right here on this campus. And the combination of the sale price plus the amount of property taxes paid over time coming to the village would total up $9.17 million over that time. And that left $4.85 million in property tax levy, new property tax levy to be levied over about a 23 to 25-year period. And in Mr. Baker's more detailed plan, you saw that it was between $100,000 and $200,000 in any given year. So that's a great financial plan, and it turns out it's really close to what happened once we issued the bonds. When we issued the bonds, the interest rate environment was a little better than we expected, so the total payments dropped by $1.3 million. They dropped to $58 million. The first two categories of revenue sources pledged for these debt service payments remained the same, multiple sources and Lot 2. Here's what's changed in addition to the total price dropping, total amount of payments dropping. The first is we have $1.75 million in cash and interest earnings on those bond proceeds available to us. The council may recall that we did another transfer from the general fund into the debt service fund not too long ago. And then we're earning cash and we're earning interest on the bond proceeds before they're spent down in this interest environment. So we have an additional $1.75 million. And here's the planning policy issue it presents. That would leave about $1.8 million to be paid over the next 25 years. The strategy here is we could take money, if it's available, in the general fund, transfer it into the debt service fund, make bond payments with some of that money to potentially avoid having to do increased property tax levy in the future. Now, this is not an exact science. If we make a transfer of 1.8, it does not guarantee anything. We have to continue to monitor all of the revenue sources in the mix. We will do that and report out. But from where the staff sits right now, it looks like an opportunity. That's why we presented it as part of the plan. So just to summarize, general fund is in strong position with revenues greater than expenses. We expect that to continue, which gives us the opportunity to transfer money into areas of other needs, which include ongoing increases in public safety pensions, and perhaps the ability to use it to pay down bonds that we already have and avoid future property tax increases. Mayor?
Thank you. I'm going to try and remember to speak into the microphone better. I apologize for that. It's part of why I like these meetings is that I don't like that part of it because I like talking to you guys. This is good information, and it speaks to many, many years of councils leading this village in a super diligent way, frugal way, a really thoughtful long-term planning, financial planning way. The couple things I want to point out is that 9.17 up there on that Civic Center, Dave mentioned there's still a lot of variables, right? And that's a big variable. There's a couple of components that make that up. One is land sale, the second is TIF valuation after whatever happens there happens. And so, of course, those are big wild cards. So we just need to sort of keep that in the back of our head. And that second item, the public safety pension contribution, that is going to be, we've got to come up with some kind of plan, I think, because if we just continue what we've done for 25 years, it's going to become an albatross. If you start looking at that, most of it is out of our control in terms of what we're required to do. But $20 million a year is a big nut, and it will start to cause us to not be able to do things that we might otherwise do, whether it's the things we're all thinking about or even the level of service deliveries that we're making. I would hate to put us into a position where down the line we were making decisions about the level of services that we want to deliver, which our residents expect what they've got today plus better every day, where we were somehow reducing that because we were burdened with that. So I think coming up with some sort of a plan, not unlike what we just did, formalizing that, and then looking for opportunities to have the ability to do that, right? Because those aren't necessarily always the case either. To me, seem to be really important things for us to do. It's none of that answers any particular question or gives a particular direction, but I see that as perhaps the biggest issue on this board. So, my 2 cents on it for the moment. Anybody else want to jump in? Chris?
Yeah, I think for me, we're talking about earmarking money, right? These are not one-time chunk payments. So it makes perfect sense to me to pull it out, keep it in this, I'll call it the smoothing fund, and year by year make decisions against that as this obligation grows. It feels like the right thing to do. I think there is, like you said, we've had some great years, some great stewardship of what we're doing, and we should be squirreling that away for the biggest nut that we're going to have to meet. Wow, that really worked, didn't it? Amazing. So to me, that feels right. I'm super pleased that it allows us, what turned out to be a nice little gift, if you will, in terms of the rates being lower at that time. I think we should use this to protect and cover what these pensions are, these well-deserved pensions that we need to make sure we're funding.
Some of us have had the enjoyment or lack thereof of 08 and 07 and 09. So these aren't always opportunities that are in front of us. That's just a reality. But when they are there, it seems like this is what we ought to be trying to use them on. Leslie?
Yeah, I agree. I see the public safety pensions as the biggest issue, right? You think about how many variables there are on the Civic Center project, but realistically, that's going to be a one-time cost. Whereas public safety pensions are going to be something that are just going to keep hitting us year after year, and it's going to be very variable year after year. So I think it's a very smart idea to create a stabilization fund or policy, so that when we do have these years, we can still make sure that we are keeping up with the expectations and the state requirements. So agree on all counts.
Just real quick, my comment on the earmarking was that it wasn't locked in to this. I just want to make sure. Okay. Something happens.
Yeah.
Right.
And as we explore, that's why it says consider creating this, because we want to make sure that while it's squirreling away for future use, that it's not also too much of predetermined in any kind of earmarking and smoothing sounds good. So we'll have to see how that comports with our formal policy.
Got it.
Would there be, with our fund accounting process, we do have the ability to move funds around, as we've done multiple times. Do we have any idea if labeling in this case would in some way constrict us?
Yeah, so the rating agencies who look very closely at these things when they give us our AAA ratings, the tighter it is and the more restrictive, if you earmark it and you pledge it only goes here, then they will look very favorably upon that, because they're saying, oh, we have great certainty. And the more flexibility we give ourselves, the more they'll say, well, you didn't really address it. You're in a great position to address it. You look like you're in a good way here, but they won't give you sort of full credit. So that's sort of the flexibility versus certainty in the ratings and things like that. So.
What about from a state legal standing?
So the state is saying that all municipalities have to work towards full funding by 2040, and so they're holding all of us to that, regardless of the financial approaches we employ. We have to get there.
Gee, sounds like the PSPCSF is a no-brainer.
Oh, no. I was so hoping somebody wouldn't try and do that.
I was watching it happen.
I was trying to rework it.
Should I write down that acronym?
No.
Please, God, no.
No, we'll come up with a better one. And with my big mouth about drafting, I'll come up with something better.
Mike?
Does our creation of this stabilization fund diminish the likelihood that we would use funds to avoid the property taxes?
So there's only a certain amount of money available to us, right, in the policymaker's decision. So yes, I think so. There'll be, to a certain degree, competing interests, but really just policy questions for this council moving forward.
That's what I thought.
But the negative implications of not taking care of that far outstrip anything that's on that board.
Oh, I agree. Just making sure I understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But it would be a budgeting, annual budget
Correct.
decision. And so, to that end, creating the fund, I think you're right, on the right path. It certainly has all of us saying to each other and to the world that we intend to try and find ways to put money in that account. But it still would be an annual budgeting process.
the 38% that was mentioned before in terms of guidelines for our fund balance, right? Does this mean that we would essentially have a greater fund balance than? No.
We've been maintaining that 38% fund balance or a little higher than that for many, many years. I think, oh my gosh, going back to the reworking of this.
2001.
Yes. We have a local council policy that's expressed in a different way, a different measurement, but it's very, very close to the 38%. So we just use the 38% because it's a quick and easy. But Commissioner Tully was part of the team who put that together many years ago.
Others? Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry to be late. Obviously, I'm in favor of the Public Safety Pension Contribution Stabilization Fund. There's no way I'm going to try to turn that into an acronym. Sorry, Martin. I would say that I would prioritize avoiding any property tax increase on the Civic Center project first, because I'd like to avoid a new tax for that if at all possible. And part of my concern with creating a fund at the moment is that we all want to get to 100% funded, right? For our fire pension, for our police pension. But we have certain restrictions placed on us in terms of what we can invest in. And we know that the assumed rate of return for the pension fund is something significantly larger than that. And allowing a fund to build here at a certain rate of return is almost losing money against that rate of return if we can't invest it and get some kind of credit in the pension fund for those additional contributions. I'd like to, and this is not something we necessarily can fix. We're kind of constricted by state law. But perhaps there's some advocating we could do at DMMC and elsewhere in Springfield to try to find a way to encourage getting to 100% a little faster along the lines of what we're considering here.
So there's a couple things embedded in that, if I could, Mayor. First is the rate of return. There's a set of regulations on what can be invested in when the money is physically in the pension funds. There's a different set of regulations, but similar, when it's just the village investing in those funds. We can get information to tell you those differences and what the expected rate differences are. And then the second thing was really a lobbying effort to change, to be able to frankly take on more risk to get a higher return with those funds.
Right. The idea being that every dollar that we get in the market, we don't later have to contribute in order to catch back up to where we need to be. Sorry.
No. I want to pick up on your point and make sure I understand it. We have, if you think of 3 buckets, we have the bucket that we use, let's call it the general fund, and then we have our pension fund. You're saying we actually put it in the pension fund bucket. There's all kinds of restrictions on how you can invest that money under state law, blah, 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 blah. But you're suggesting we don't put it in that 3rd bucket. We come up with a better acronym and we put it in the new bucket that has some restrictions on it that we impose upon ourselves, but would maybe not have the restrictions, or how does that, I mean, is that what we're talking about
That's
here?
not quite what I understood when we talked.
Yeah, so
I thought I heard
I'm trying-
like trying to sort of prepay into the actual pension fund.
Right.
But get credit for it.
Yeah, so it's a
Okay,
little
I got
both.
it, I got
It's
it.
a little both.
I thought you were talking about setting the money aside, but with the ability to invest it at a higher rate than you otherwise could.
I'd like to do both.
Well,
because
that's where I'm going with
Yeah,
you. That's why I want to understand whether that's what you were saying.
on some level, we don't know exactly how much money we're going to have to set aside into something like that, right? And making an additional $10,000 is a lot different than making an additional $100,000 in terms of contributions. And we don't necessarily get a dollar for dollar sort of credit on the future year's contributions.
Right.
By making additional contributions now. We get some sort of marginal benefit that's significantly reduced, and we get the opportunity to perhaps earn more in market returns.
So to use the graphics, if we were to take money that's coming in from this gap and put it directly in the pension funds, it helps, right? It helps a lot. But what it does is it doesn't change the early part of this curve very much at all. because of the way it's amortized. It changes the very, very back end of this curve. And what happens, and if you're looking to smooth the impact to our current taxpayers, it doesn't do that very well.
Right.
It really benefits way out here. So it's really, what's the policy the council wants to make? If you put it directly in here, benefits accrue way out here. If you do the smoothing with this, then the benefits accrue at both points, more here, less in the future.
Yeah. And I'd like to find a way to get both benefits if we can.
Well,
Frankly, the sooner we get to 100%, the better off our taxpayers are, the better off our police and firefighters are. It's a win for everybody.
But putting it in some sort of a fund that we control, it has that effect, but the timing also becomes ours.
Yes.
And so there's some ability to, counter. We're always a little bit in the arrears. Our calculations are always a little bit in the arrears from the standpoint of our contribution requirement. And so there's a little bit of ability for us to take existing experience and have a predictive element on the next contribution, and then therefore choose to smooth or not smooth in some instances.
Right.
As long as we retain control of the actual fund.
So if I heard Commissioner Jose correctly, for example, if we had a $2 million amount that the council agreed wanted to go towards pensions, you might say, all right, let's take $1 million and put it directly in. Let's take $1 million and put it in the smoothing fund. In addition to that, trying to pursue better returns on our money.
Yeah, depending on exactly what the strategic, benefits of that looks like.
And the good news is, even if we were to implement this plan, as the mayor and others have said, it's an annual budgeting decision anyway, right? So you could choose to do that example any year, any time, with or without this fund.
Can I ask a question regarding 2040? What's the significance of choosing 2040 as the
state law?
State law?
Yeah, it's just a pretty arbitrary date, actually.
Yeah.
And I'll look to the village attorney. The state, of course, could also change that at any time.
Yes. There has been legislation already introduced to change that.
Move it out, right? Yeah. Because that burden is so huge.
So that could change our math.
It would change the math, for sure. It would change the math of the requirements, but it may not change the village's math, because we can always be more aggressive and assertive in our funding plan. The state law is the minimum. Right now, we're a little more aggressive and assertive in that regard. The state law says you have to be 90% funded at any given point in time, and we're putting in as if we want to hit 100% funded.
But to Greg's point, the sooner we get to that level, then you're in a maintenance instead of a catch-up mode, and it's way better for all of us.
Yeah, I'd rather just pay for the current benefit rather than the unfunded gap as well,
Right.
if at all possible.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
So that, in accountant speak, I think is the normal liability versus the unfunded liability, right?
Yeah, I'd like to get to where we're just paying the normal cost, which means we're at 100% funded, basically.
Okay.
So is that your split? Is the split get to the normal in the fund and anything we might have outside of
At
it?
this point, staff would feel more comfortable exploring the concepts with our finance director and our actuaries.
Yeah, there's a lot of
sort of get
moving
those fine points, but I think,
Okay.
this is how
I
we'll
just,
be.
everybody, I think, is unless I don't presume to speak for everyone, but I think everyone recognizes that this is a huge problem, and that some, at the very least, some creative investigation on our part is necessary. Whether it results in something specific or not, we need to know more about what some of the options are that we could try and control our own future a little better. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Is anybody opposed to at least exploring the smoothing and earmarking fund or policy?
No, but I think to Greg's point, now I'm interested to know what sort of rate of returns, as you said, we might get outside of it versus in, because my understanding is inside of it has not been good. That it was consolidated in the state, we took a hit. So if we can have control over that money in a way that is significant enough to make it worth keeping it outside. So that's all the stuff you have to figure out.
We will bring that information
Perfect.
back.
Sure.
Perfect.
And to Chris's point, everybody's taken a whack in the market over the last year. I don't know a pension fund that hasn't, and I know my 401k sure as heck has.
You're brave to look, I have not.
But,
Wait 20 years.
but obviously, if we control it, then we have the ability to be more nimble in terms of, what trades we might make. But also, timing the market is a very dangerous process.
No, I'm certainly not suggesting that. I'm saying it sounds like there's limitations into what can be invested when it's in the fund.
No doubt.
If there are less limitations when it's outside of the fund, we should look at that as whether or not that's enough difference to make it worthwhile to not meet what I think is a smart move, the current obligation, or in terms of the actives. Yeah.
It's still going to be extraordinarily conservative, but it might be still better than sticking it in bucket number one.
Right.
Well, staff will certainly get some more. The driving force behind this conversation, at least the start of this conversation, was trying to have some ability within our own control to smooth the impact on our residents. And so if we have some available resources, knowing what next year's contribution each year is going to be, we have the ability to react a little bit, as opposed to just sort of taking whatever the market gives us at any moment.
And this is where this conversation helps a lot, because we'll certainly give you this stuff conceptually when the budget comes out in October, then we will actually have numbers to run and show you how these policy options would likely play out.
Can I ask a history question? Why didn't we do this before? I mean, sorry,
Good question.
I'll play my rookie card again.
No.
In
The revenues
my
were-
career at the village, this line graph has most of the years been reversed. And so we were always trying to find a way to get it to balance. We weren't dealing with revenues exceeding expenses on a substantial period.
Food on the table right now is the most important thing.
Yeah.
With this, there hasn't been an opportunity like this since 2002.
Okay.
3, maybe.
Well, it looks like though, starting in 20, right? We started to separate there.
It's probably around April of '21 is when it really started.
Or what we,
It's a little, that was just good.
Right, Danny? Right, Danny? Right, Greg? Right, Greg?
Great
I
policy.
don't know. I'm to blame for the rest
Oh,
of it.
yeah.
This, so.
There's also a thing called
Well, we've
COVID.
also, I was gonna say, we've been dealing with COVID. Are what we're seeing, is this typical of what other municipalities are seeing as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Both in terms of their revenue exceeding their expenses and then.
A lot of those state sales tax and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it
Sales tax.
is happening because of the economy, the strong growth environment of the economy, and the way it interacts with the state and local revenue sources. We're getting this as an outcome.
Is this, I'm not gonna do the acronym either. The stabilization fund, I'm resisting it, I wanna say it, but is the stabilization fund something that other municipalities have moved to, have been doing?
Yes, and particularly the non-home rule communities who are subject to PTEL or tax caps have used this as a tool in a variety of different environments. And so we are a home rule community, and we've been simply levying the required amount as a practice over the last several years. So it's certainly not a new application, it would be a new application for us. We did it, basically we did it this year, in this year's budget.
We're not blazing a new trail though with this. Is
Correct.
this- Okay.
In a non-home rule environment, you have to be pretty creative to have some flexibility, as you probably know. So our ability to do what we need to do when we need to do it has actually, some would argue, been pretty successful for taxpayers because we don't feel the need to sort of squirrel anything away. But this pension thing is daunting.
We've heard great policy direction, we'll give you some more information, but it seems like the plan is taking steps towards formalizing it.
Still have guests? You guys haven't fallen asleep or left on us yet?
Commend you on your discussion.
Anything you guys want to comment on?
Happy with the left-hand graph.
Yeah.
I tend to be a person who doesn't get upset when taxes go up because I understand taxes pay for roads and for fire department and policemen and provide us with a safe and welcoming community. So, but it is good to know that we do not have to suffer or have increased taxes as long as we're looking at those types of gaps and being able to support our fire department and our police department with their pension is very, very important to me.
Okay.
And if I could, Mayor, just one last item, very important one, but it did not lend itself to the whiteboard, and frankly, the whiteboard was kind of full by the time we got to this one. So, but it's a very important issue, and that is the Ogden Avenue Tax Increment Financing District. The Ogden Avenue Tax Increment Financing District will expire at the end of 2024 with revenues received through 2025. So basically, effectively expires at the end of 2025. The village and our valued partners at the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation are currently pursuing several redevelopment projects along our Ogden Avenue TIF district. Many of them would be subject to redevelopment agreements, and TIF dollars would be invested in them to get us to improve our general fund situation, trying to drive sales tax dollars and food and beverage tax revenues. We're in good shape in this TIF increment. Remember, there's no debt or bonds issued in this. It's a pay-as-you-go approach. And as you would expect, as the TIF district matures, most of the money will come in the last couple of years. In fact, approximately $7 million will be available in that fund that's accumulating from now until that end point. And it's just sort of a timing reality. It's a challenge. It's going to be difficult to invest all those revenues received between now and the end of the TIF in the redevelopment projects we're talking about. They take a little time to put together. They can be a little complex. So to address this issue, it's really an opportunity. We're recommending the following strategies and solutions. So by the end of 2024, extend the Ogden Avenue Tax Increment Financing District for up to 12 years and invest only that increment that existed at the balance at the original expiration date. And we'll use that to facilitate these projects that generate sales tax and food and beverage tax. For any increment that comes in after the original expiration date, it would be treated as if the TIF had already expired. And the way you do that is you would declare each year any increment received as surplus funds. And that means it's distributed back to the other taxing bodies on the pro-rata share of the tax bill. So to all of the other taxing bodies, it feels as if the TIF did indeed expire. But this allows us to take a few more years to be strategic in our investment in our redevelopment projects. We would actually have to take action to extend the TIF in 2024, and we cannot do this alone. It requires an action by the State General Assembly. It has to be signed into law. These are pretty common. Many municipalities have taken advantage of these extensions. It will help to get local sponsors from our own area to support the legislation. We would work hard to do that. I don't think there would be any concerns. And it also helps to get support from the local taxing bodies. And since this plan makes them whole and it makes it feel as if the TIF had already expired, we're not expecting any objections. So that's it in a nutshell. There's much more information available in the report. Mayor?
I can't do any better job of describing that than what Dave did, except to remind everybody we just did an extension tonight, not on a TIF project per se, but it's just an example that sometimes these things move slower than everybody wishes. And this idea of just buying us a little time to use the existing TIF revenues, I think makes perfect sense, and I suspect would be supported by others in the community, other taxing bodies as well, because they understand both reality and would be made whole. So I think it's a no-brainer.
It actually goes beyond that, because if the $7 million were not reinvested in Ogden Avenue, then you would lose an opportunity to drive even more revenue within the TIF, but it would be distributed to all the taxing bodies. So it's not only making District 58, District 99, and others whole, but it also creates an opportunity to turn that $7 million into a lot more, from which all the taxing bodies that are included in Ogden Avenue TIF could benefit from. So it's actually at worst, they're made whole.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
a much more significant upside, so this is, should be supported with,
Yeah,
yes.
and part of this is, part of what's driving this too is that there are sort of pending opportunities. It's not that we're hoping maybe somebody will come up with something in a few years.
Yeah.
There are some pending opportunities that just won't come together likely in the window necessary.
And we don't want to blink on those.
No, we don't
We don't
want to
blink on those.
Right.
Okay, anyone else?
Do you want nods?
I'm looking
Yes.
for a
Consensus?
nodding,
Yeah.
thumbs up kind of thing so that Dave knows what to do tomorrow. Otherwise, he'll be
Yeah.
completely confused.
Calling all of you the next day.
That's right.
No,
Yeah.
This is great policy direction, thank you for that.
All right, hey, you got any more board flipping?
Are we done? With the direction, Mayor and Council.
There's another board in the back.
Yes.
All right, now, we'll see if I can not get ahead of ourselves. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all, and good night.